So I'm with Rob Opsomer from the MacArthur Foundation. And first of all, really want to ask you where we're going with the new plastics economy plan that you presented at Davos. And now there is a 3-year implementation program rolling out. So just talk us through how that's going to go.
So indeed, in January this year, we launched a report, New Plastics Economy, Rethinking the Future of Plastics in Davos. And building on that, we launched in May the New Plastics Economy Initiative, a 3-year initiative to mobilize the recommendations from that report. And what we're doing there, we're working in 5 areas. We're working on a dialogue mechanism, bringing together players all across the global value chain. The Global Plastics Protocol, aiming to create a degree of convergence in the system to address fragmentation and improve the economics of the plastic system. Innovation moonshots, where we will launch in the first half of 2017 2 major innovation challenges, really to reset the boundaries of what's possible today. Then the evidence base, where in January 2017, so just in a couple of weeks, we will launch a new report in Davos, really thinking at how can we take that conceptual vision of the new plastics economy and translate that in an actionable plan to move forward over the coming years. And then lastly, we work on stakeholder engagement, where we continue to engage a wide set of stakeholders, policymakers, industry associations, students, academics, on that redesign of the plastic system.
Okay, I think it's very important that we realize that we're talking about all of plastics, not just bio-based or oil-based, but all of plastics. Now, I think you said that 1 in 3 of all plastic items that are produced end up in the environment in some way, in other words, dumped. Now, where does the responsibility for this lie? Because it seems to me that consumer education is probably pretty important in this.
Well, that's an excellent question. There's multiple answers to that, and it really depends also on which angle you take to this topic. So, if you look at leakage into the ocean, for example, plastics leakage into the ocean, about 80% of that originates in Asia and Southeast Asia, more importantly, more specifically, and that's often due to a lack of adequate waste management infrastructure in these countries. Now, if you look at it from a different perspective, over 95% of the headquarters of the major global consumer good brands and major plastics producers globally sit in Europe and the US. So it's actually the people who are designing these products sit here in Europe, sit in the US. The problem manifests itself elsewhere, often in developing nations, often in Asia, but the way these are designed sits really here.
I mean, this is grossly irresponsible behavior. It's littering, basically, isn't it?
It's more than that. So it's much more than that. So if you live in the Philippines, for example, and in many parts of the country, there is no formal waste collection infrastructure. What can you do with it? And what we see often in these countries, that there is informal collection. So you have waste pickers in the informal grey zone economy that collect plastics, but they only collect the plastics that have value. So they will collect PET bottles. If you walk the streets in Manila, you see everywhere people walking around collecting bottles, but they will not collect the plastics that have low value. So there you come back to the point of who is then really responsible. You can say it's these countries because they're not putting in place the right infrastructure, or is it all the companies that design and put these products on the market, knowing in a sense that the high value products will get picked up and the lower value won't?
Would one solution be to make all plastics have an obvious value rather than to be disposable?
That would be a massive enabler to reducing the leakage, both by increasing the direct value of products or putting systems in place that improve the value of the products. Yes.
I suppose that brings us to Biobased, actually, because if we can't stop people unnecessarily discarding their, let's say, plastic packaging, at least if we make it of some organic material that isn't harmful to the environment, it's a step in the right direction.
Well, there is, of course, a difference, as you know, between bio-based and biodegradable plastics, not necessarily the same. And then while that's conceptually, it's very appealing, and it seems instinctively such a good idea. In reality, there's a lot of challenges that come with that. So can you actually make packaging, for example, that has the functionalities you want and can biodegrade when it leaks in the natural environment in a short period of time? That is technically highly challenging.
I think one of the points that came up today was that if it's biodegradable, there is a thought in the consumer mind that it's okay to just dump it. Does that sort of sounds like a reason for not going the biodegradable route?
That is a topic indeed that's often brought up, and a topic that would need to be tackled if biodegradables were used at scale, because indeed it's very unlikely that any plastic would ever be designed in a way that it's actually beneficial to leak into the environment. The goal should always be to collect it and reprocess it in a structured way.
Do you see a role for biodegradables in a circular economy?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we look at plastic specifically, where biodegradables can, for example, really play a role is in applications where the material is almost by design linked with other organic byproducts. Think about coffee capsules, think about containers of food in fast food packaging, in fast food restaurants, where there is such a big link between the organic contents and the packaging that, first of all, you likely cannot recycle the packaging anyway because it's too contaminated. And actually, if you make it compostable, you can use it as an enabler to return the valuable nutrients that are in these organic byproducts, in the food residues, to the soil.
Yeah, the phrase organic recycling has come up a few times in this conference, so I guess that does answer the question. It seems in a way from a kind of moral position and also a kind of common sense position that making plastic out of a bio-based material just makes more sense than making it from a diminishing fossil fuel resource. But it is taking a very long time to get traction. Now you're a fairly significant influencer on social responsibility, I suppose, and the way that we deal with the environment. Why is it taking so long, do you suppose? And what will change that?
I think things are already changing in the global economy today, and we see that the topic of plastics and the many benefits it brings, but also the many challenges that are related to the current system are becoming more and more at the forefront. And we've seen actually even over the past 1, 2, 3 years, we've seen a massive uptake in attention and momentum around this topic. So I think things have already changed, and the recognition that we need this fundamental rethink of the way we produce, use and recover plastics is starting to get there, and now is the time to take that recognition and move it into action towards a more effective system.
I think that's very fair, but if you just look at the statistics, it was something like 4.1 million tons of bio-based and 76 million tons of fossil fuel plastics. It's a fraction.
It is a fraction today, and of course also bioplastics are not the only lever we have in moving towards the target state of a new plastics economy. There's different things to be done there, and progress is moving on all the fronts. And of course you can always argue, is it going fast enough? Can we accelerate? And we believe yes, we should accelerate, and we actually believe that there is right now the right environment with recognition by businesses, by policymakers, by NGOs that we need to speed up. So I'm confident we will actually do that in the coming years.
Well, I think the industry should be very grateful that you're spurring them on to a more responsible future. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you.